Good afternoon. This is Bob Spitz with Management Success. I'm having a discussion today with Kareem Abouzeid from Knockout Collision and Dino DiGiulio from Body Best up in Sonoma. And we're talking about different subjects. We've been doing this on and off for a while. Different subjects regarding management and how to manage your collision shop so that you have more control over it. Because if you have more control, well, then you're going to realize more income. And you can turn your gross into profit instead of just having gross. Because some of you have a lot of gross, and it's gross how much gross you have. So we're going to figure out some solutions to all this. This is the first in a series of podcasts that we're going to do. And the first subject that we're going to be discussing is controlling the shrinking profit dollars. So I want to say hello right now and have Dino and Kareem say hello. So say hello, Dino.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
And Kareem, say hello.
Hi, this is Kareem.
You want to speak up a little bit, Kareem? You're a little low.
Yeah, hey, this is Kareem from Knockout Collision up in Chico.
Great.
Is that any better?
That's much better. So
Good.
what we're going to do is we're talking about controlling the shrinking profit dollar, guys. And what I want to talk about is the importance of knowing your costs in your collision shop or your collision center. And I know both of you have worked on this quite a bit, and you've got it nailed down where you do know the costs of running your business. And how important is that to you? And I'll let you go first, Dino.
Well, we talk about KPIs in the industry, and our KPIs, or at least the ones that Management Success trains us on, is your cost of paint materials and parts and your production labor and your front labor and your operating expenses. And if you don't know those numbers, how do you gauge and how do you end up with any money at the end of the month or the end of the week or the end of the day?
Exactly.
So
it's kind of like opening up your eyes instead of walking around with them closed, hoping to run into profit.
yeah, run into profit. So you know our KPIs, when there's something out or askew, when we look at our numbers, we know, okay, where the problem is, because we can go, okay, well, we're 5 points over in this area. Then we go right to that area, and we then break that area down and then look at where our problem is and where our leakage is.
Right. How about you, Kareem? What do you say on this?
Oh, it's totally critical. You know, I remember before learning about this stuff where I would just work, try to work more hours and you know, guess at what the problems were. And that gave me a headache, that's for sure, banging my head against that wall over and over again. Really knowing where things are supposed to be and having the correct benchmarks. You know, it's like it's the tool that you need. I mean, it's like having a tachometer in your car, speedometer in your car. You know, if you ever had a car that didn't you know, the speedometer didn't work, you were pretty nervous about driving around, especially if you saw a cop, right? It's kind of the same thing. You don't really know what you're doing.
That's right. Or the horrible realization in business when you get to the end of the year and your accountant says you were profitable, but you have no money. And now you're looking out for the tax man, because tax man cometh and he doesn't care what you did with the money, he only cares that you made it. So understanding your numbers and especially understanding your costs of doing business so that you can compare it to your sales in these various areas, well, it's really everything. Otherwise you're walking around blind hoping to accidentally bump into profit. And, you know, it's terrible when a shop owner is almost shocked that he was profitable in a given month. He doesn't believe it sometimes. It's like, where did this money come from? And it shouldn't be that way. You can't control a business unless you know what your numbers are supposed to be. And as you said, Kareem, just hoping to work harder and longer by getting your volume up and getting your gross up, well, that's not a solution now, is it?
No, I tried that for quite a while.
Yeah, because, you know, we have a saying in Management Success, if you can't make the business profitable at $50,000 a month, what makes you think it's going to be profitable at $100,000?
Yeah, Bob, also, too, if you don't know where to start to look, you know, when you get your profit and loss and you're just looking at this number and you're like, well, I know I'm losing money somewhere, but if you don't have those KPIs that you've trained us on and taught us, you wouldn't even know where to start. You go, yeah, my guys could probably be more efficient. Maybe I'm overpaying. I'm not quite sure. But if you don't have those numbers and you don't look at them on a regular basis, then you're kind of like running your business with a blindfold.
Right. So let's break down these big ones. I mean, there's many KPIs that a owner of a collision center should track. But let's just look at a couple of the big ones that can help a guy start steering his ship in a more causative way, in a way that actually creates a positive effect to his bottom line. And you mentioned them, Dino, and let's start with the first one being cost of direct labor, meaning the guys in the back.
Production, yes.
And, yeah, your production labor, and controlling that number. What number do you try to steer your business towards to be profitable?
18% for the guys in the back. And this is the production staff is anyone that touches the car. And we all know the detailer is the one guy that we really don't get any money for. That's part of the service, but we still have him in that percentage because he is a cost of doing business. You got to have a detailer to clean the cars when the car's finished. And we have a polish technician also, which we do get some money, but not always.
Right, unless they're working for free, they're part of the cost.
Yep, so they're all in that one number. Anyone that touches a car that's in the back.
Right. So you've got to just look at, and the easiest way to do that, if you have a hard time finding it on your profit and loss, is just look at what you're paying your guys in a given week or in a given month and then break it down into the weekly. You can even start with a yearly and break it all the way down to a weekly. How much are you paying him? And then take whatever you're paying him and add on your, what we call loaded cost, your cost to have him legally working for you on your floor. So that's your payroll taxes, that's health care, that's Social Security, that's workers' comp. And the simplest way in California, because our taxes are higher than most other states, is whatever you're paying a guy, and let's just say, and I'm just using this as an example, if you're paying a guy $15 an hour, he does not cost you $15. That's not your business expense. He actually costs you, as a California shop, closer to $19 an hour after you've paid out everything else in contributions to his taxes. So you have to look at it from a loaded point of view, otherwise it'll be skewed. This is how you start figuring out where your money is. And that's a big one right there. That'll tell you, do I have too many guys? Or am I not getting enough production from my guys? These are important things for any collision shop owner to really understand and know. So just look at how much are you paying your guys, and then multiply it by 1.33. Multiply it by a factor of 1.33, and you'll be close to what it costs you in California. Does that sound right?
Yep.
Yeah. Now, the other one that you mentioned, Dino, and Kareem, I'll let you speak to this one, is your cost of parts. And that includes, for a collision shop, paint and material. Because you can't just look at your cost of parts, you've got to look at your paint and material. So how do you look at that, Kareem?
You know, I look at them both every week. And, you know, you got to make profit on both those, and part of that's negotiating, you know, the best deals you can, but bigger than that is making sure that you absolutely charge for everything that you're putting on a car. We were able to do pretty well on parts and materials. We're able to usually keep it in the high 20s, including both.
Wow.
Paint and material,
and
parts. Yeah.
And when you're saying the high 20s, you're saying the high 20%.
Yeah, 26 to 28% of our total, of our gross sales, gross income, that's our cost of parts and paint materials.
Right. And how have you seen in the past, Kareem or Dino, how do collision shops start losing it on this point as far as bad procedure or bad controls in the shop? How does this number start getting out of control?
I think
I would say that if you're not handling supplements properly, making sure you're billing for everything you need to do and getting paid for it, and when there's parts price increases, marking them up properly. If an insurance company only paid for an aftermarket fender at a lower amount and you ended up using an original, even if the vendor lowered their price, you got to make sure you're profitable. Like the gross profit is correct on each item, or as close to that as possible. That's a big way. Things like materials for repairing plastic, bumper covers or door skin adhesive when you're replacing a door skin. Those are real expensive two-part epoxies, and if you're not charging for those, you're eating them, and they go directly against your profit on those.
Dino, what about controlling the amount of supplies or materials from the collision to the paint booth, from those two areas?
Yeah, this is another number. This is another KPI that's important. There's a lot of numbers floating around out there, but obviously the lower you can get that number, the more is on the bottom line, the net. So putting controls in, making people accountable for everything they use, and then giving them a incentive plan on using less material, like that roll of tape that sits on the floor, or overusing something, or not thinking about a piece of sandpaper they just used and then throw it on the floor. And instead of throwing it on the floor, let's keep it on the toolbox and just be a little bit more aware, because the material is very expensive. And then the repaints, the color match didn't quite match. If he spent 5 more minutes looking at the color, he's going to save with having to repaint that car. So it goes from the body shop wasting sandpaper and Bondo and all those supplies, the urethanes, and then not getting it on the supplement sheet that, hey, I need to use a tube of urethane or panel bond to put this panel on to make sure it gets on the estimate, because that's $65. Billing for everything that you put on the estimate, and having a system in place to make sure that happens is important. And then giving the guys an incentive when they do beat those percentages, it does put them part of the game, and it makes them more accountable.
Right.
And want to do more.
Now, in an ideal world, we would always have just-in-time supplies. In other words, I only have on hand the supplies I need to get the production done today. Well, we don't live in an ideal world, and it's very hard to just order the supplies you absolutely need for today. So there's got to be controls put in place on the amount of supplies that are readily available to the bodyman or to the paint department, isn't there?
Yeah, they're each responsible for their own supplies, and they order their own. We have a system in place where they each get their own cabinets, and they're accounted for the material they buy. So we can look at each technician at the end of the month to see what they're purchasing, how much they're purchasing, and there's an equation you're supposed to work out with repair hours versus body supplies, and those numbers need to stay in line. If something gets askew, why? Oh, he did this many quarter panels, and he needed this many seam sealers and adhesives, and that's why that was more. But at least we know why, and we're looking in those areas. But they're accountable. You have to have systems in place so when someone pulls a supply from a cabinet, it gets tracked. Who took it? When did you take it? And what did you take it for? So those are key points. And then talk to your jobbers about putting stuff in cabinets called consignment cabinets, where it's all new material, and then when something needs to be pulled because we're out of it, we have a cabinet to go to, versus calling your supplier up on the phone. Can you run down some clear because we're out of clear? We didn't know we had to paint 3 cars today or 5 cars today. So there's things that you can set up where it's not your money sitting on the shelf, it's the jobber's money sitting on the shelf.
Right. And we'll talk about dead time and how to speed up your cycle time by eliminating dead time in a future podcast, because that alone is a very interesting topic and subject at just that one point. You know, and then another thing, Kareem, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think too many collision shops do not look at the relationship between what they are billing out on painted material versus what they are what they're paying for their painted material.
Yeah, and you know, there's definitely a lot of people feel like that's. I know comments I hear from being involved in industry groups. A lot of people feel like that's the problem area and they're not able to make money. But you definitely can. I mean, I know we charge about 10% of our total sale on paint materials, and our cost is in the 6% range. So we're making some money there, and it can be done. I also include everything that I buy from that jobber. I mean, I include our paint booth filters, sandpapers, tape, masking, everything that I buy from our jobber. I include that all in that number, so it's not like I'm just including the paint, which some people, look at it specifically just the liquid paint only. They look at that number too, because that's the most expensive thing you buy.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely important to look at both of those, what you're charging for it and what you're paying for it.
Yeah, you just have to take the time to analyze this.
Yeah, and some of the insurance companies will say, hey, we'll put on their estimate a certain amount and say they can't go over that, but it's just a negotiation. And I know we use water-based base coat, and some insurance companies will pay more for that. And if you don't ask, you don't get it.
That's absolutely true. I think I've told both of you some of the stories I've had talking to insurance adjusters about that exact point. They go, well, if it's legitimate and it can be proven, we'll pay it. It's just that we have a lot of collision shops that don't even submit it. They don't ask for it.
That's part of the game.
They're scared, and they get tired of asking, and you got to keep asking, because I remember a time, it wasn't that long ago, that we weren't getting paid to polish the car, and about 2 years ago it swung back in our favor because it's on every one of our estimates along with everyone else in the area. We just kept the pedal down, and eventually they came to and decided to come up with their own technical term, nib and polish, which is what the factory does anyway, and that's sort of how we got it finally on our estimates where they're paying us, and everyone's paying us. It might be at the end of the job, but we're still getting paid for it.
Right. Now, one thing is understanding that there are KPIs that need to be tracked and watched and monitored. And the other point is putting in the processes and procedures and policies in place in the shop to actually control these things that we're talking about. How important was it for both of you, and also you, Dino, to have a consultant and a coach help guide you through this maze of where's the dollars?
You use the word guide, and that's a nice term. Sometimes you need a kick in the ass. And I was just talking to someone just a minute ago or an hour ago about, it's sometimes a coach or a trainer, getting you to do something that you have to do, but you're like, yeah, I'll do it tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
So having someone saying, what are you going to do this week? And when you get done, you feel like you've accomplished something, but it's very easy to put stuff off. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. But when you have someone in your ear telling you, I'd like you to finish this week, and next week we'll talk about it, and it just, before you knew it, it was this culture where you were doing things and you didn't really realize you were doing them, and then they were getting done, and the shop was starting to do better, and then you realize, holy smokes, if I'd put this off, I'd be right where I was without it. So having someone walk you through those areas that sometimes are tricky. There are things that get forgotten, and you're not quite sure, and then you have an expert that knows it inside, outside, backwards, and forwards to get you into that mindset that this has to happen on a regular basis, and this is the steps to do it. And so if there's ever a roadblock or a stop, your coach is just a phone call away of walking you through something very simple, or maybe it's complex and you needed some help to finish it out.
Right. How about you, Kareem?
Sure.
What's the question again?
Well, the question was how important was it for you to have a coach or a consultant help guide you through the processes that need to be put in place so that you can control these KPIs?
It was definitely crucial. I mean, because I would be running around putting out fires, and the fires were the result of me not doing my job as the owner or the manager. So I would be just caught in this trap of out in the shop handling things that weren't the root of the problem. They were just like, a symptom.
Uh-huh.
And so I was just working, early to late, and cleaning up messes that I wasn't fixing the fundamentals of getting the systems in place to manage the shop properly.
Right.
Getting people well trained, things organized so that everybody would be doing their job the way I wanted it done. So it was critical, because my consultant would call me, would help me, would coach me, would talk me down when I was really, getting excited about something. Get me to focus on what was really important. And there were times when I was ready to fire people, or I was ready to quit myself. Get me to look at how much ground I had gained and what the correct thing to do was. And that's made a huge difference. When I look back, I mean, our business has grown threefold, and I work much less, and it's a much better environment. And all the employees totally have benefited from that too. They're all much happier and less stressed.
Oh, sure. No one wants to work in a chaotic environment.
No.
And nothing makes an employee more anxious than when their boss is anxious. They're like mirrors. They are just mirroring the way you're feeling. And so it creates this kind of chaotic, anxious environment when things aren't going well. So, yeah, those are very good points. And, the wonderful thing about having your own business is there's no one there to tell you what to do. But the other side of that coin is there's no one there to tell you what to do.
What to do, yeah.
And that's tough. That's tough, and I know that. Well, I sure appreciate your time today. We'll continue some additional chats on marketing a collision shop, and also on employees. Speaking of employees, we'll do some more podcasts on those. And if anybody who is listening would like to find out more about management success, you can call Dino or you can call Kareem. They'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. Once again, that's Dino is Body Best Collision up in Sonoma, and Kareem is Knockout Collision in Chico. And or go online, www.managementsuccess.com, or give me a call. My name is Bob Spitz. I'd be happy to talk to you and see if we can help guide you through the maze of where's the profit dollars. All right. Hey, thanks, guys, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Glad to help.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.